Welcome into Starcade Media, everybody. I'm Noah Groniger, and we want to make sure that you guys are subscribed to us here on YouTube. So take a second and hit that subscribe button below. Also hit the notification bell off to the side. That way you'll be the first one alerted when a new video drops right here on Starcade Media. Today, we're going to talk about the last 7 head coaches of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to rank them starting from number 7 all the way up to number 1. I'm not going to talk a lot about each one because we've interviewed a lot of former players over the years, and I want to get their thoughts on these guys as well. But number 7, I think we've got to start with Romeo Crennel. What can you really say about him? He went 2-14. He wasn't really a head coach. He shouldn't have been hired, all because of that Packers game in 2011 where we beat the undefeated Packers. But man, I remember a time where Romeo was asked by a reporter in 2012, why did Jamal Charles only have 9 carries? And Romeo's response was, he did. I didn't even realize that he only had 9 carries. Of course you didn't realize he had 9 carries. You're a defensive coordinator masquerading as a head coach, and you just had no idea what was going on. You had no clue. You had no business being in that position. And that's why Save Our Chiefs started. And ultimately, that's why Andy Reid is here. So in a way, thank you for being awful. But we move on to number 6. And that honor or dishonor goes to our friend Herm Edwards. Man, he had a silver tongue. He could talk you into anything. And he did week in and week out. When he went to his press conference, he would talk me and I'm sure a lot of other fans inside Chiefs Kingdom into, we're real close. We've got this figured out. It's just a few of these problems. They're very fixable. And then comes game day, and he's lost. There was a game against the Raiders where Eddie Kennison caught a pass on 3rd down, was clearly short of the first down marker, so it was going to be 4th down. Herm wanted to take a timeout, think about it. He threw the challenge flag anyway, lost, and there goes 2 timeouts in the blink of an eye. But he was a good man off the field, and he did have some moments as a head coach, not here in Kansas City, maybe in New York, but we've talked to former Chiefs quarterback Brodie Croyle, and he had some interesting thoughts on Herm Edwards, not just as a coach, but as a person. So let's go to those.
I love Herm Edwards and still have a relationship with Herm to this day. Herm's actually come up here and gone to one of our golf tournaments before and come and visited the ranch. And, I'll never forget the first meeting I was in with Herm. He said, guys, I don't care about how many Pro Bowls you've been to. I don't care about how many All-Pros. I don't care how much money you make. He said, none of that matters to me. He said, I'm worried about you Monday to Saturday. He said, because if I can get you to be a good man, a good husband, a good father, he said, I know I'll get a good teammate and I'll get a good player because I know the talent that you have. He said, but I want to focus on you as a man. He said, the measure of a man's success is not how much wealth he acquires, but how he affects those around him in a positive way. He said, I want you to be that man. And it just made a profound impact on my life that this guy's sitting here and he's basically running this $1 billion business, but he's more focused on me. And he created a relationship. He wasn't just focused on the rules. There was other people that were focused on the rules. He was focused on the relationship. And it's amazing, the guy that I had the relationship with, I still have a relationship with to this day. The guy that focused on the rules, never really talked to him again. So it proved a great, valuable life that truly relationship does change everything. And he's still focused on that today. He'll call and be like, hey man, you doing all right? How's Kelly? How's the boys? How's the ranch? Everything doing good? You doing everything that you're supposed to be doing?
Some very heartfelt words there from Brodie Croyle, who says Herm Edwards still keeps in touch with him and is a great person. And that's what's most important. We're just talking about his on-field accolades or lack thereof. And so at the number 6 spot, it had to be Herm Edwards. And number 5, it's going to have to be Gunther Cunningham. While in 1999, taking over for Marty Schottenheimer, who resigned after the 1998 season, Gunther Cunningham, I love that piss and vinegar. We almost made the playoffs. We lost to overtime to the Oakland Raiders in 1999, the last game of the season. Otherwise, we would have been in the playoffs. But then we finished 7-9 in 2000, and he's gone. He comes back in 2004 as the Chiefs defensive coordinator, rehired, coming back to a place that fired him as a head coach. You don't see that often. I love the piss and vinegar still that you had him in Hard Knocks. You see him yelling at guys like Tank Tyler and Turk McBride, and he still had that fire, that passion, and I love that. But like I said, I'm not going to talk a lot about these guys because we talked to Jared Allen, and we asked him about his former defensive coordinator, Gunther Cunningham, and here's what he had to say.
Oh, huge too. I mean, the Gun, I love Gun. Gun was an honorary SOB, but I did love him. Again, he's just a guy that pushes you. He pushes you for greatness. I appreciate people that don't settle for mediocrity, Gun was eccentric in his ways and full of crap most of the time. But I love that man, and I would have run through a brick wall for him because that's who he was, and he stayed true to who he was, and right, telling you you're no good because he wanted to push you to be better, comparing you to other guys, but still complimenting you in the same way. It was a unique coaching style that I really did like and respected, and he found a way to get the best out of his players. And again, I enjoyed that fire. I enjoyed, the way he pushed me to be great, and always basically I was always second fiddle to Derek Thomas. Who isn't? But that drove me. That drove me to constantly to be better than Derek Thomas and to chase down his records and try to have those averages and stuff like that. And so for that, Gun was amazing. He, like I said, he was a motivator in his own unique way, and I really respected that about him.
And number 4, we're going to go to Todd Haley. I know a lot of people did not like Todd Haley. I'm one of the few that did. Like I said, I love that piss and vinegar. I love when they get in guys' faces, and that was Todd Haley. I wanted to yell at Matt Castle and Barry Richardson, but I couldn't. So who could? Who could I live vicariously through? Todd Haley, because he was on the sidelines, getting in their faces, having shoving matches. I loved it. Maybe it wasn't the greatest for the team, but in 2010, we did make the playoffs. We lost to the Ravens, but I loved the fire and the passion that Todd Haley had. And I think you've got to tip your cap to him a little bit and say he lit a fire under Derek Johnson and Dwayne Bowe. He decided when he got here, we weren't getting the most out of their talents. And so he put them with the second string units kind of in training camp and preseason to say, hey guys, we expect more out of you and I want more out of you. So I'm kind of demoting you here for the meantime until I can get the most out of you. And that lit a fire under those guys, and they never looked back and had great careers. But again, we talked to Brodie Croyle. We heard from him when he talked about Herm Edwards. Let's hear what he had to say about Todd Haley.
But Todd gets a bad rap a lot of times about always constantly being on you and all that. But I told Todd this. I just said, man, when you siphon through all that, and I think he's probably a different person now than he was, even then. But when you siphon through all that, there was always a great message behind it. He was always coaching. He was always pushing. He was always trying to get the best out of you. It's just some people couldn't take that. They couldn't accept that because they were so focused on the yelling and the screaming that they didn't hear the message. And so I appreciate Todd, and I appreciate a lot of the messaging that he brought through. It came in a very animated form at times.
So you heard it there. Brodie liked Todd. He said he had a good message. Just some guys weren't very receptive to it with the yelling. You couldn't get through to hear the good message because you were so focused on him screaming and yelling at you. So he makes a good point there. Todd is still only 4th on our list with 3 more to go. And at number 3, these last 3 guys are some of the greats. And we've got Dick Vermeil at number 3. The high-flying offense. He comes in here with Trent Green. They bring over Willie Rofe and Priest Holmes and Johnny Morton, who maybe wasn't the greatest, but I remember him from the Lions. I liked the move until he came here and didn't do much, sadly. But man, you've got Tony Richardson in the backfield. You got Jason Dunn and Tony Gonzalez at your tight ends. Eddie Kennison kind of resurrected his career here and had a nice little stint. Fortunately, the defense, there was a lot left desired on that side of the ball, and Dick Vermeil admits that. But we got a chance. We've had Dick Vermeil on this show many a time. We talked to him about being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Andy Reid coming up there, taking time off of his schedule to see his friend be inducted into the Hall of Fame and how much that meant to Coach Vermeil.
The fact that Andy Reid showed up there with Tammy the night before the night of the gold jacket, and left the practice field, came there, then went back to practice the next day. I think that's the finest tribute of respect I've ever had paid by another football coach to me in my career. And I will always be grateful for being able to experience that overall feeling that it gave me to see Andy Reid standing there. It'll always be a positive thing with me.
All right, at number 2, this is a tough one for me. This hurts my little Chiefs fan heart. I'm sure a lot of you easily would say, well, I know the 2 left. It's probably Andy Reid and Marty Schottenheimer. Number 2, it's Marty. After a lot of thought and putting my feelings aside, my very strong feelings for Marty Schottenheimer and what he did here and how he resurrected Chiefs Kingdom and made Chiefs Kingdom what it is today and brought the sea of red and the noise and the raucous atmosphere to Arrowhead. Andy has 2 Super Bowls, and I'll get into everything Andy did and why he's going to be number 1. But man, I love Marty Schottenheimer. Like I said, he resurrected. He built this program back into prominence, into greatness, winning the winningest teams of the 90s. We were a downtrodden franchise in the 80s. We were not it was more about the Royals than the Chiefs here in the 80s. Marty made this a football town again, and I'm forever grateful. He made me a fan. He's why I'm in sports media today. I was able to make a film for him, and that meant so much to me to be able to take that down and to his home in North Carolina and present that short film to him. And you can look for it here on our channel. It's called One Play at a Time, a film for Marty. And you can see the trailer to that film. But we've got to hear from Rich Gannon and Shawne Merriman about why this was such a tough decision for me and why they love Marty Schottenheimer and why we think so much of him.
I think when you look at Marty's body of work, I think he's certainly Hall of Fame worthy. I would say that I know how difficult a place that is to get into. If they're hallowed grounds. It seems like it gets more and more competitive as we get more and more players that are eligible. But Marty had an amazing run, and I think the lack of postseason success is probably what's holding him back. I think Marty won at least 200 games in his career,
yep.
And I think. As I said, he was not a good head coach. He was a phenomenal head coach, and he did it with so many different players. I think the biggest transformation is with Cleveland, and then he came to Kansas City. Guys, the Chiefs were bad, really bad, and he turned them into a perennial power. I mean, we dominated the AFC when Marty was the head coach, and so. We miss him.
He was much more than a coach for me, man. He really. You knew he cared. That was the number one thing when I met Coach Schottenheimer and I spent time with him. We talked more about me personally and family and everything else than he did football. That said a lot. And I can't tell you how much I miss him. I think about him all the time, and get a chance to talk to Brian and the family and everybody that I talked to here and there. For him not to be in the Hall of Fame right now is the ultimate disrespect, in my opinion. You go and ask the rest of the coaches that are in the Hall of Fame or the coaches that are going to be in the Hall of Fame, I think they would all agree with me. And you can talk about rings and everything else. Let's look at winning percentages and what he's done for organizations, what he's done for players.
Strong words from Rich and Shawne right there. But number 1 slot, I've already said it. I've already given it away, and you already knew it was coming. If you know me, you're maybe a little bit shocked that it's coming, but it is. Number 1, Andy Reid. 5 straight home AFC championship games, 2 Super Bowl victories, 3 Super Bowl appearances. Thought about putting Marty at number 1 is because Marty never had a Patrick Mahomes, a Travis Kelce, a Tyreek Hill, a Chris Jones. Yes, he had a Derek Thomas, but had Joe Montana the last 2 years of kind of an injury-riddled last 2 years of Joe Montana. Never had maybe the greatest quarterback we've ever seen in his prime. He never even had a guy as good as Donovan McNabb when he was here in Kansas City. But Andy Reid has done what he's done, and you can't take it away, and he is a genius with this offense and his scheming ability and bringing Patrick along. So you've got to give him his due, his credit, and so that's why Andy Reid is number 1. We hope you enjoyed this video. We hope you enjoyed some of the players. Did I get some of this stuff wrong? Was I too nice to Todd Haley? Was I too harsh to Herm Edwards? Would you have the list in a different order? Would anyone else struggle with Andy and Marty? I think they're a lot closer than surface level would dictate. I think they're pretty equal as head coaches. It's just Marty never had a Patrick Mahomes. Marty never had a Donovan McNabb. But I digress. Let us know in the comments where I went right, where it went wrong, and what your feelings are. Maybe what your list is. Give me your top 7, how you would rank them. Thank you so much. And as always, here on Starcade Media, we got to end it with a big Go Chiefs!